In V Rising, soul shards are everything. They're the pinnacle accomplishment, the most overpowered items in the game, the goal and win condition for most tournament servers. They are proof of beating the game. Now, I like pushing games to their limits, and so it's only natural that I try to attain the soul shards as fast as possible. In order to obtain soul shards, you must kill the 3, or more realistically 4, final bosses. There's Boar Crusher the Behemoth, the Winged Horror, and Styx the Sunderer to access him, and then lastly Solaris the Immaculate. Now, the most important thing to look at is simply how early on or how low level can you do these bosses. In this first episode, I'm going to be taking on the first of these 4 bosses, Styx the Sunderer, and we're going to try to kill him at level 58. Styx the Sunderer himself isn't actually that hard of a boss. The challenge with Styx instead comes from 2 other places. Firstly, his environment, and second, his summons. So in order to kill Styx, especially at low level, you have to figure out a good way of dealing with each of these. The problem with Styx's environment is that the Cursed Forest is home to many very annoying mobs that will constantly interrupt your fight, especially the Night Lurkers and Witches. Both of these roam around the roads that Styx himself travels on, and so even if you take a wide sweep around Styx and kill everything in sight before engaging him, you'll still get these assholes rolling up on your fight without any warning. Now, in my testing, I found that there's no great way to deal with this, but the best way seems to be to set up near the end of his path, at the very southeast of the Cursed Forest, and kill all the mobs around there, as that place seems to have the least traffic for the roaming mobs. Now, obviously, if he's really far away from that area, you're just gonna have to wait a while, but you can use the time to roam around the roads and kill all of the witches and Night Lurkers you find, as they can roam all the way down there. There are generally 2 strategies for dealing with bosses' summoning phases. First is to just ignore the summons and kill the boss, and second is to focus the summons down one by one before returning to killing the boss after. Normally when you're doing Styx, you always want to kill his summons first before returning to him, as they deal a ton of damage and have awkward movement, making them hard to dodge and predict. So naturally I tried this method first. It became very apparent very quickly though that this was not going to work. You can dodge everything and slowly kill them one by one without too much difficulty, but because of being level 58, you can't do enough damage to kill them before he just summons again. So you get stuck in this infinite loop of killing summons just for him to summon again after you finally kill them. Since killing the summons didn't work, I was forced to try to ignore them instead, and this technically could work. Maybe if you were really good, but realistically it's just too hard. The summons circle around him and you constantly, the environment doesn't allow for that much free movement, and he summons 6 before he stops using his summoning move, meaning the summons tank the vast majority of your damage, as well as the fact that if you tank one combo from any of the summons, you kinda just die. So ignoring them was sort of a no-go as well. That left me with no standard strategies, so it was time to get creative. When Styx uses his summoning move, he jumps up into the air and summons the little vampire summons directly under him. Now, since mob aggro leashes when you move too far away from either where they spawn or where you aggro them, if you move far enough away from Styx summons, they will leash. So, if you make them all spawn in one area and then run far enough away, you can just leash the summons instead of having to deal with them. Now, normally this would leash Styx too, so you have to do this in a particular spot. Basically, if you think of aggro ranges as a circle, you move to one side of the circle with Styx and just hang out there until he summons all his little dudes, and then run to the other side of the circle. Because Styx summons spawned at the edge of the circle, their circle will be in a different spot from Styx's, giving you a little bit of room to go kill Styx without being in the summon circle as well. So you run to that area, the other side of Styx circle, and his summons will leash, but Styx will not. For the final fight, you can see the gear I'm rocking is Dawnthorn armor with a Scourge pendant and iron slashers. Nothing that requires a recipe and all pretty easy and fast to get. Now the actual fight comes down to 3 phases. For phase 1, you want to start with your 2 best ranged damage per second abilities. Now before you jump right into the fight, one thing that's really important at the start of the fight is to note exactly where you aggro him for when you get to the summoning phase. In terms of doing phase 1 after you've aggroed Styx, it's really all just about kiting him around and getting him down to 50% HP. I like to lead him one way, then stealth and go through him and just go back the other way. But after you get used to his abilities, it's a pretty easy first phase, so you can do sort of whatever fits your style. Just a note about this first phase, you don't actually have to use your space or any defensive abilities for any of his abilities, you can just walk out of all of them with the right movement. When he starts getting close to 50% HP, this is where you want to lure him to the edge of his aggro range and fight him over there until he uses his summoning attack. As soon as he summons, swap to your best defensive abilities and then just run around in that area kiting him in the summons until he summons again. This is where having the slashers comes in really helpful, so I would suggest using slashers for this fight if you can. After the second summoning is done and he comes back down, you run to the other side of his aggro range, and this is where phase 3 begins. Now the start of this phase is really important because you really want to make sure you don't accidentally leash Styx, so as soon as the summon's leashed, I would suggest going a bit closer to the center for some more wiggle room. If you ever re-aggro the summons by accident, you can just do the exact same thing again. For phase 3, I like to keep Blood Rate on instead of the second offensive spell, as when he gets to around 25% HP, he adds in his last move, which can be pretty hard to deal with. For this Bat Swarm move, you're going to take some damage from it, so it's helpful to have taken very minimal damage up to this stage. There's no real way to guarantee avoiding the damage, but some things that can help are using your ultimate, the Octavian ult, to dodge some damage and do some damage back to him, being immune during that Octavian ult. You can use Blood Rite to counter any of the Bat Swarms that are about to hit you, and one thing that's also really helpful is slashers again. If you use the stealth on slashers during this phase, obviously the Bat Swarms still can hit you, however they don't target you as directly as they would before if you were not in stealth, which can help out a lot. And that's about it. Honestly, you could probably pull this off a little earlier, like without the Dawnthorn armor, but it's sort of unnecessary as you will need the Dawnthorn armor for the other bosses anyways. But with Styx down, we're now one step closer to getting those soul shards, now able to fight all 3 final bosses.